and it's a little cloudy today. But good news is um, Neighbors Landscapers came a little early this week, so hopefully we won't have those sounds going on in the background, and hopefully my dog won't go crazy. I've also been having just a interesting week with the internet this week, so everybody seems to be having some internet connection issues. I think we're all flooding the internet right now, and um, so it's probably bandwidth issues and other things. And I know that we have two of us here at the house going through video chats and meetings and everything else. And one of my daughters is home and she's watching Netflix or stuff. So it all takes a toll. But here we are, and hopefully we don't get interrupted by my computer just stopping the internet connection. Um, Quick COVID update on the courts. There's not much to say that's changed. The courts, county by county, it just makes a difference which county you're in. Some county it's by court. So my best advice is if you have court hearings or dates, to contact the court that you're in and just see what they're doing if they're going forward. Harris County jury duty has been canceled through June. No other new updates. So courts are continuing to operate the same way. Galveston, there's not a whole lot of information there. They're currently set to resume juries on June 22nd. That might change when it gets closer to. From what I can tell, family court's still closed, so they're still handling everything via electronic or phone means. Once again, contact the court, see what's going on, especially you have hearings in front of Associate Judge Baker. Um, some are going forward, some aren't, so I would just contact them and make sure before you make that drive down there. Missouri County, I have no updates. I don't know what's going on there. Fort Bend, jury is suspended through July 7th, so they're not having any juries until July 7th. And it looks like their district clerk's offices and courts are closed through May. So once again, contact the staff and see what's going forward there. Chambers County, what they're saying is jury is suspended through June 1st. And the courts and district clerks are closed until further notice. So you might just want to check their website. And I didn't get a whole lot of information on Montgomery County before I came on here. So as I said, just make sure that you're contacting your court and keep in touch with the coordinators. And if you have attorneys, obviously your attorneys will be doing that and letting you know. As far as any trends in the data and new cases, hospitalizations, so new testing on May 18th was the highest since early April when we had the really huge spike. We have 63 in the hospitals. The ICU bed occupancy is approaching moderate concern. So they're starting to fill up those beds. So once again, start living your life, do what you would normally do, but just take the precautions. Wear your mask, hand sanitizer, that sort of thing. But enjoy life, have fun, because we've had some beautiful weather days. So the meat of today is we're going to quickly talk about general property division and how courts handle that in divorces. So there's two types of property. You've got your real property and personal property. Real property is anything that's land and touch anything that's connected to the land. Personal property is everything else, which includes, I know most people think of them as their own children, but pets, animals, that's considered personal property. So classifications of property in Texas is for the family courts is it's either going to be community or it's going to be separate. So the presumption with the court, that means they just look at everything that a party owns on the day of the divorce trial, and they're going to assume that everything is marital property or community property. Then it's up to the person claiming that it's separate property to prove to the court that that property was either owned prior to the marriage or they got the property during marriage because somebody passed away and left it to them or somebody gifted it to them. And there's many different ways I won't get into of how that that can be proved. Now, what we have sometimes is what we call a commingling. So maybe you had a bank account with some money in it that you then started putting money into after marriage, and so you've commingled those funds. There's a method called tracing that can be used to try to determine what's separate property and what's community property. But the best idea is to try to just keep things separate and not mix them if possible. Now, the interesting thing about any account that accumulates interest, the interest is community property, while the property that's causing the interest to be made remains separate. So your retirement accounts, those could be partial community, it could be partial separate property. So if you had a retirement account that was open prior to marriage, anything that, any increases in that retirement fund after marriage would be community property. And so there's some really interesting formulas and things that we use to try to determine the division. So what's community and what is separate property in those accounts. One thing I get often questioned about is, well, I've got a car that was bought during the marriage, but it's just in my name, so it's mine. That's not how this works. It doesn't matter whose name is on the title. If it was, purchased or received during marriage from any method other than somebody leaving it to you when they pass away or giving it to you as a gift, it is community property. So if you buy a car and it's only titled in one spouse's name, that does not make that separate property. That is still community property, which is subject to division by the court upon divorce. So I've also heard, well, it's my bank account. No money's ever been put into it by the other spouse. Any money that is put into that account, other than money that's received from one of the methods I've said before, somebody passing away and leaving it to you, or a gift, is community property. I also hear a lot, well, my spouse never worked, so they've never contributed. That's also not how it works. So each spouse's income is community property, and so each spouse has an interest in it. So there's some ways, if you want to make sure that you keep everything separate, then you can do a postnuptial divorce, or sorry, not divorce, a postnuptial agreement, or an agreement incident to divorce, to split those properties. The postnuptial agreement can set up how property is going to work during the marriage. It's pretty much the same thing as a prenuptial as far as setting out the intentions of the parties and whether they're going to be creating community property or not. You can do the same sort of thing with a postnuptial. So if it's, I've seen some people wanted to do that because, maybe one spouse has a business that could have some creditor issues and they want to protect the other spouse. And so that's something that can be put in place. Now, I would caution you not to just do it to avoid, creditor issues if you already are in trouble. This would be something that would be planning on the front end before anything bad happens. So that's, there's also some really interesting things, in relation to animals. We have a lot of people that have, ranches, so they have horses, cows, that sort of thing. And so any mutations of what happens with the livestock, well, that's a whole nother, video that we can do later on. But these are all issues that, are looked at by divorce attorney in determining property division. And it's all stuff that needs to be, verified in a form that can be proved to the court in order to get a division or your interest solidified in that property. So I hope this helps. It's going to be a shorter one this week, but I hope everybody enjoys this Memorial weekend and stay safe. Don't drink and drive, and be safe out there with the COVID. So take care, and we'll see you next week.